All right, let's talk about renter's insurance. Ever really stop and wonder what you should be paying for it? It feels like one of those things that ought to have a simple, straightforward answer, but it rarely does. So today we're going to cut through all that noise and figure out the true cost. Okay, let's just dive right in. The big question, the one on everyone's mind, is what's the actual price tag on this thing? Let's just skip all the guesswork and look at the real numbers. And there it is. Based on the latest data from 2024, the national average for a pretty standard renter's insurance policy is going to land you somewhere between $15 and $30 a month. But, that's just an average. What does that price actually get you?
Right, so to really wrap our heads around that price, we need to kind of pull apart what a standard policy even is. It's really built on three main pillars of protection.
First up, you've got your personal property coverage. A typical policy has about $30,000 worth. This is the part that helps you replace your stuff. Your laptop, your couch, your clothes, if it gets stolen or, say, destroyed in a fire.
Next, there's $100,000 in liability coverage. And trust me, this part is absolutely crucial. It protects you financially if, for example, someone gets hurt in your apartment and decides to sue you, or if you accidentally break a window in your neighbor's place.
And finally, there's the deductible, which is usually set right around $500. Just think of this as your share of the cost. If you have to make a claim, you pay this amount out of your own pocket first, and then the insurance company steps in and pays the rest. This right here really puts it all into perspective. When you realize that protecting literally everything you own and protecting yourself from massive lawsuits costs less than your monthly Netflix bill or a couple of lattes, well, the value becomes pretty darn clear. So if the average is $15 to $30, why might your quote look a little different? Well, it all comes down to risk factors. And these basically fall into two big buckets: stuff you can't change and stuff you absolutely can.
Let's break these down, because on one side, you have factors that are pretty much set in stone, based on who you are and where you live. But on the other side, you've got these levers you can actually pull to change your monthly premium. Understanding this difference, that's the real key to getting a great rate.
First, the things you can't really control. These are almost all tied to your address. Insurers are looking at risk based on your zip code, right? So they're checking out things like local crime stats, because that obviously affects the risk of theft. They even look at how close you are to a fire station, which can impact how fast the fire might get put out.
And then there's your personal profile. In most states, companies can use something called a credit-based insurance score. It's not your regular credit score, but it uses similar info to guess how likely you are to file a claim. If you filed a bunch of claims in the past, that can raise your rate too. And believe it or not, even owning certain dog breeds that insurers see as high risk can bump up your cost.
But now for the fun part, what you can control. This is where you get to make some choices. So yeah, choosing higher coverage limits for your stuff will raise your premium. But look at the deductible. It's the opposite. If you choose a higher deductible, say $1,000 instead of $500, your monthly payment actually goes down. And check out that last one. Replacement cost coverage is a bit more expensive, but it means the insurer buys you a brand new laptop if yours is stolen. Actual cash value only pays what your 3-year-old laptop was worth. See? This is where you have direct power over your price and your protection.
So now that we know all this, how do you actually use it to your advantage? Let's get into a simple strategy for finding the most affordable coverage that, still does the job you need it to do.
And this is so important to remember. There is no magic bullet here. There's no one company that's the cheapest for everybody. The one that's a great deal for your friend across town might actually be pretty expensive for you, all because of those factors we just talked about. Now, while there's no single cheapest option, some companies do tend to be pretty competitive. You've got Lemonade, known for its all-digital model, State Farm, which has a ton of different discounts, and Travelers often gets really high marks for value. But seriously, think of these as just starting points, not the final answer. So what's the best strategy? It's simple. You have to shop around. Getting personalized quotes from at least 3 or 4 different insurance companies is the only way to know for sure that you're getting the best possible price for your unique situation. So how do you do that without it becoming a huge hassle? Well, here's a super simple 4-step guide to finding out what your actual cost will be. Okay, it's a really easy 4-step process. First, do a quick home inventory. You can literally just walk around your apartment with your phone camera on to get a rough idea of what your stuff is worth. Second, based on that, decide on the coverage limits and the deductible you're comfortable with. Third, just gather up your basic personal info. And finally, once you're armed with all that, you're ready to go out and get those quotes. And as you start comparing those quotes you get, just remember this key difference. Your goal shouldn't be to just find the absolute lowest number. The real goal is to find the best value, and that means getting the protection you actually need at a price that's fair and competitive.
Which kind of brings us full circle, right back to where we started. When you think about the fact that proper protection often costs less than your favorite streaming service, it really just leaves you with one last question. For that small price, is your peace of mind protected?